Hi everyone, this is Dr. S.M. Baggio. Today we are going to see about John Milton's Paradise Lost Book 3. So here we are going to have a small recap about what John Milton has done and how religious person. And he is grand, lofty, style. Milton has taken story from the biblical characters about the fallen of men and describes it in the Paradise Lost and his famous works for Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained and Samson Agonist. This is the image and we have a small recap about Adam and Eve in the Eden, that is garden. The poem concerns the biblical character that stories of the fallen men, the temptation of Adam and Eve by the fallen angel Satan and their expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Milton stated his purpose in Book 1 is to justify the ways of God men. The story of temptation and fall of men, the story of Adam and Eve, temptation and fallen is a fundamental different new kind of epic, a domestic one. Adam and Eve are presented first time in Christian literature as having a full relationship while still being without sin. They have passion and distinct personality. Satan, disguised in the form of serpent, successfully tempts Eve to eat from the tree by preying on her vanity and tricking her with his mesmerizing speech. Adam, learning that Eve has sinned, commits the same sin on purpose. He declares to Eve that since she was made from his flesh, they are bound to one another. If she dies, she must also die. In this manner, Milton portrays Adam not only a brave figure, but also a great sinner than Eve, who is bravely aware that he is doing wrong. After eating the fruit, Adam and Eve have lustfully sex. At first, Adam is convinced that Eve was right in thinking that eating the fruit would be beneficial. Soon they fall asleep and they have terrible nightmares. After they wake, they experience guilt and shame for the first time, realizing that they have committed a terrible act since God. They mutually blame each other. Meanwhile, Satan returns triumphantly to hell amidst the applause of his fellow fallen angels. He tells them about how their scheme. He gives them the complete domination over paradise. As soon as he finishes his speech, the fallen angel around him becomes hideous snake. Satan himself turned into a snake, deprived of climbs and hymns and unable to talk. Thus they shared the same punishment and shared the same guilt. The temptation of fallen Eve. So these are the images which we have heard, and from this perseverance we can see themselves with the thickest three. Heavily bands down from a sky of jasper, lighten out in paradise. So the Paradise Lost is an epic poem in blank verse by the 17th century English poet John Milton. It was written and he was born on 1608 and died at 1674. The first version, published in 1667, consists of 10 books with over 10,000 lines of verse. A second edition followed in 1674, arranged into 12 books in the method of Virgil, and it with a minor modification carried throughout the notes of versification. It is considered by critics to Milton's major work. It increased his reputation as one of the greatest English poets of his time. It was the first edition, and Paradise Lost, it was published in London print, and we can see by it is purchased and how it has been delivered. So here you can see what are the things we can remember, and we can see Paradise Lost, its poem in 12 books. So John Milton wrote the poem in blank verse. Paradise Lost was written on the biblical theme of the fallen men. Narration of the poem unfolds in the poem Paradise Lost as two narrative arcs, one about Satan, Lucifer, and the following Adam and Eve. Book 11 is the longest book in Milton's Paradise Lost. Book 7 is the shortest book in Milton's Paradise Lost. 10 books were included in the first edition of the poem Paradise Lost. 12 books were included in the second edition of the poem Paradise Lost. The second edition of the poem Paradise Lost was published in 1674. In Book 3, John Milton describes God sees Satan flying towards his world and foretells the success of his evil mission to tempt man. So God explains his purpose of grace and mercy towards man, but declares his justice must be met. Nothing else his Son, who sits at his right hand, freely offers to sacrifice himself for man's salvation, causing the angels celebrate in song of praise. Meanwhile, Satan alight upon the outer shell of the new version, that is creation, where he finds an opening to the universe within. He flies down to the sun, upon which an angel Uriel stand guard. Satan describes himself as a cherub. He pretends he had come to praise God's new creation and thereby the trick the angel into showing him the way to man's home. So with this, John Milton completes his third book. Thank you.